everyone! Welcome to Tuesday D&D, the TTRPG talk show. This is some shiny new layouts we've got. Maybe not completely finalized, but hey, we've got to start. I'm your host. I'm Kay. I talk about nerdy things, and I do a lot of TTRPG stuff. With me here is David. David, say a thing.
Hi, hello.
That was the shortest. David is my wonderful partner in crime, helps me co-mod all sorts of things. We are absolutely going to be taking questions. Hello, Vivian. Hello, Steve. Thank you all for hanging out. Before we dive too deep in, I want to say thank you to Bardly.io for the chill music you hear in the background, and to Web Captioner, providing us the captions you see below. Like I said, new layout. Let me know if you think it's too purple. I'm kind of digging it. It was way more purple before, but we've got some stuff going. I did an arty thing this week. And with that, David, we have something really exciting to talk about.
Yes, we do.
And I know you're just a little bit jealous that I have the thing and you don't.
Yes, but that is often the case because you get all the cool stuff.
I feel the need to deny it, but I also know that denying it would be a lie.
Half of the cool stuff I have in my room is from you. You're like, hey, do you want this thing that I don't think is cool at all? I'm like, that thing's super fucking cool. Like just give it. And you're like, okay, here you go. And then I have a cool thing in my room.
So, with that, today we are going to be talking about this beauty, The Call of the Netherdeep. This is the new adventure book by Critical Role. It is written by, okay, let me make sure I get all the names right, because it is Matt Mercer, but it was not Matt Mercer on his own. Project leads were James J. Heck, Matt Mercer, and Christopher Perkins. Writers include Heck, Mackenzie D. Adams, Latia Jacquise, who's a good friend of D'Angelo, who played in one of my campaigns, Cassandra Kaw, and Sadie Lowry. And oh my goodness, y'all, there's a lot going on in this book. It is 200 and... So, first off, before I say anything else, I have a full spoiler-free review of this up on gamingtrend.com. I actually got that done in time, which is really awesome. However, we might wander a little bit into spoiler territory here. However, I'm going to be very careful because letting your players solve the riddle, the mystery, uncover themselves what is happening with the Netherdeep is like one of... Oh, it's so cool. I am so excited for players to be like, what's going on? And then figure it out. And that's awesome. Okay, so it's 186 pages of adventure, plus creatures, plus a handful of magical items, as well as concept art, which is awesome. So we're starting right off the bat with Steve. Is this, my question is for this book, how much is player focus, DM focused versus player focused? As a DM, for modules or books, like Tasha's or Xanathar, I like to have a physical copy, but I always want to have digital copies of PC options available for my players. With that in mind, I say this is digital purchase. Don't have enough module. I should get it for my preference, or having a paper copy, writing it for the players. Okay. First off, this is truly a adventure module. There are a handful of items that are directly related to this. There are no there are no subclasses, there are no backgrounds, there are no there's no anything for players except the battle maps and the... Oh my goodness, y'all. I do need... Oh no, did I leave it in the other room? I left it in the other room. David, talk really quick. Yep. I left a very important thing in the other room.
Well, I'm sure you're wondering why I gathered you here today. It is time to execute the coup that I have been planning for quite some time. Oh wait, she's back. Never mind.
This is the other thing. And when I tell you that it's not small, granted, I am small. It is still not a small fold-out map, and it is beautifully double-sided with the layers of your adventure. This is a Tearout. So, you know, I got it real good mostly, but like I did nick a little bit there, and that makes me really, really sad. But I'm just a little disappointed because the Taldoria campaign setting Reborn had like it wasn't a tear out, it was in a little pocket and it was beautiful, and I'm just sad. Oh, apparently. Let's see, does that even our audio out any? Because we had a new layout, I had to adjust some things, and I forgot to do a whole round of mic checks and recording tests before we went. So, David, talk
So
some and see if we're about the same.
we shall see if I have been evened out or, you know, not.
Yeah.
When is a door not a door?
When it's a bottle. Excellent. Thank you for the heads up. Yes, y'all, if I'm often doing this by the seat of my pants, and often after a full day of work, so if I'm ever, if you ever see anything fishy, please tell us. We really appreciate. We want to adjust it. So, yeah, this is a proper book. I don't think there's really nothing to give your players out of this, except for there are a couple, like, little, they can win, like, you start off at an festival, and there's some little things that they can win that you can, but you can make better props than this. Like, you don't need a PDF of this. You can be more creative. It's very simple.
One other thing I'd like to address with Steve is Steve makes a good point because, or rather, I'm going to put a point on top of that, where outside of PHB Monstrous Manual, and I still call it the Monstrous Manual even though it's not the Monstrous Manual anymore, and the DM guide, I don't think Wizards does a great job of being clear in their advertising to differentiate between this is a source book, this is an adventure, and this is a resource that is attached to the books. Because you have like Xanathars, or Tasha's, and they don't really, like, it does say on the book somewhere, but in advertising and in how it's referenced, it doesn't really say, hey, this is player focused, everybody should have it, or this is a source book so you can have more tools to build your own adventure, or this is a standalone adventure. Like, everybody knows Strahd is a module,
right?
But yeah, and that's another good point. Is so many books have been a blend of both. Ravenloft,
Ravenloft.
Everybody Loves Raven has had it, like, definitely has that. It's like, here are things you can run. Here's like this whole source book thing that you can build your whole world with. Here are all these tools that you can use for that, and here's how you integrate them, and here are all these additional monsters. And while I really dig that format, like they should do, at least in their advertising, a better job of differentiating, making clear categories for what you should. Because, like, if I'm a DM and I've got $100, I'm gonna grab a PHB, I'm gonna grab a Monstrous Manual, I'm gonna grab a DM guide. But then, well, then I'm out of money. But yeah, if I have just enough money for one more book and I have to go, okay, what am I going to get? Like, as a DM, I might be disappointed if I grab Strahd expecting tools to build out things that aren't Strahd.
just nearly
Or
dropped a figurine. So,
yeah, don't do that.
when it comes to the Critical Role books, at least, here's what I can tell you: Taldoria Reborn is 100% setting, campaign setting. There are no modules there, but there's a whole lot of subclasses, a whole lot of feats, new things like that, but 0 modules written for it. This beast is nothing but setting, lore, world, and then some cool stuff for players. Wildmount, on the other hand, is a hybrid. It does have a couple little modules, but it is by and large campaign setting. A couple tools for characters. This is nothing but module. Nothing for characters, nothing for players. This is an entire campaign that will take you from level 3 to level 12. Also, for what it's worth, this one...
Wait. 9 levels?
This is a beast of an adventure. That's why I said if we run it, it's at least 6 months. Easy.
Yeah,
Easy 6
absolutely.
months. This requires the basics. DM guide, player handbook, and monster manual. It does have... Now, Taldoria Campaign Reborn is so heavy I can't have 2 of these in one hand. I don't know if that's me being a weakling or just this, but...
No, that's a lot of book.
This is a lot of book. I also broke this arm, so that's going to be my excuse forever. It makes 0 reference to Taldoria Reborn. Do not need Taldoria Reborn at all to run this. It makes some optional references to Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. This campaign does start in Xhorhas, which is one of the focuses of Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. And because your characters start at level 3, there is a level 1 to 3 adventure in this book that they encourage you to run if you want to start your characters at level 3. Or at level 1, not at level 3. I am hydrating because it was redeemed.
Yeah, I gave you an excuse.
You have to hydrate too because you're on camera.
I never signed up for that. That's silly talk.
I'm glaring at you, sir.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
And posture checks. Be good. So you do not need the other books. However, Wildmount is going to be a really nice resource if you are planning on running this. So, what is this adventure? Like I said, you start at Xhorhas, you then move to the continent of Marquette, into Acherel, which is the home of Gilmore, the glorious Gilmore. And so, I really like this adventure. I really, there are some parts of it that are going to be incredibly challenging. The first is, the title is Netherdeep. You're going to be dealing with a lot of underwater battles. So make sure you're brushed up on those rules.
Zoinks, yeah.
Now, it does not require a specialized party because there are plenty of magical items and potions that will let you breathe underwater that are distributed at the right times. However, underwater combat does have a lot of additional challenges, including depth, and depth is a major part of this. Also, as a DM running combat, so okay, I'm just gonna see everyone on this cover is a major NPC in this game that you as the DM are going to have to play. This is truly a Critical Role adventure. This feels like something I expect from Critical Role. There's a lot of shades of gray, there's a lot of branching narratives. There are, like, at one point, there's 3 different syndicates that you can group up with. You don't have to join them, but you can. And if you group up with, you can pick which one, and all of them are interwoven. And you have you are from the very beginning of this book hooked up with a rival party. So these characters on the outside are another adventuring party who are same place, same time as you, and depending on the choices that you make very early on in the adventure, might actually be the heroes of the story, not your player party.
So, to really into play PC opposing, it's funny because before Netherdeep was announced, both Kay and I talked about um, opposing parties, and we've toyed with the idea of building a module or integrating something into a setting whereby you could have multiple groups and their actions interact with one another. And actually, two of the modules that I am developing for our source book key in on that, whereby one thing one group does and then one thing another group does both funnel into another storyline. And so, you know, brilliant minds think alike. I'm glad that Matt Mercer finally caught up to what Kay and I are doing. And the other interesting thing is the idea of like these groups being pitted against each other in a way. Now, the real thing is the real challenge to this is coordinating a group of 8 to 12 adults to all sit down at the same time to play the same game. But that is neither here nor there. But we're putting the cart before the horse, though. Like, while Critical Role is wildly popular, there are huge chunks of it that your average person, your average Critical Role enjoyer, hasn't necessarily gotten into. So start off with tell us about the World of Exandria. Tell us about what Netherdeep is. Tell us about the world that this module is set in.
Okay, so Critical Role is set in the world of Exandria, which is Matt Mercer's homebrew place. Something that's been mentioned, and it's kind of been known and discussed on and off in season 1. Like, the players weren't all that aware of Matt's original homebrew world in season 1, which is kind of funny. But Exandria has 2 moons. There's a large red moon and a large regular moon, much like ours, and then there's a much smaller red moon. Ruidus, which is actually the focus of this. And if you read and or play this campaign, you will actually get a really cool, juicy bunch of lore drop about the world of Exandria, about Critical Role, that is not so far available anywhere in the 3 campaigns. Matt Mercer has mentioned some of these things offhand, but it's never been a major plot point of the show thus far. We'll see how that changes. This story has roots that go all the way back to the Calamity. For those of you who, again, may not be that familiar with Critical Role, that's totally cool. That's what we're here for. Matt Mercer, in his world, the gods used to just be very much among us and very active. But at some point, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, long lost to time, there was a great war between the gods, and there were the betrayer gods and the prime deities, and the betrayer gods wanted to destroy the world and start over, and the prime deities prevented them. They had their champions. There was a huge battle which destroyed large swaths of the planet, especially in Xhorhas, where, if you remember when they were those barbed fields, yeah, you're going to get real up and personal with the barbed fields in this. And this story in the Netherdeep actually goes all the way back to a battle in the Calamity. And we get to see how decisions made and sacrifices made thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, so long ago that it's lost completely in the haze of time, how that can still affect the world today. This also culminates in a phrase that, this is so weird. I think I'm seeing things pop up under your captions, David, that I think it's catching me somehow, which is, I don't know, it's very weird. But completely distracted. The time culminates in you play this, and your players are potentially gonna get their paws on a Vestige of Divergence. And those of you who are Critical Role fans, you know that Vestiges of Divergence are these huge, amazing, wondrous items that either the Prime Deities or the Betrayer Gods left behind when they removed themselves from this world and locked themselves behind the Divine Gate. And these are incredibly powerful items that grow in power as they are awakened and as the wielder becomes more powerful. So, there is also an entirely new thing that is introduced in this book, which is there's a new element which is appearing, a strange red glowing element called ruidium, because it resembles Ruidius, the red moon, and an interesting method in which you can infuse magic into items in ways that you couldn't before. This is also a really good time to mention that make sure you have a 0 session, because corruption, both mentally and physically, is a long manifesting theme of this campaign, and both your NPCs and your players, they're are basically really not going to be able to avoid encountering this corruption, if not getting it themselves, which will include things like rashes, which turn into pustules, which can then turn into crystalline growths coming out of their skin, and for some people that's a little squicky. So make sure you touch base with your players.
Which, to put a pin in it, we'll circle back to trigger warnings that one might encounter in the book, but continue.
Yes, but just to show, like, this is one of those, there's some really cool details about this. I just want to show you, like, you start, this is where, this is the little corner of the page, where on the first page of the book, as it starts talking about it. But then, like, by the end, that corruption has spread. So if that doesn't tell you that this is a theme, if you are a Critical Role fan, there's a whole lot of really cool things for you to encounter. Like I said, you're going to be going through the barbed fields, which the Mighty Nine tread. We all know Hot Boy Essek Thylus. Well, Varen Thylus is in this game. You can befriend him, you can fight him, you can, I wouldn't recommend doing that. You're gonna go down into, I just blanked on the name of the place that he guards. But you're gonna be in Braxistan, so if you remember, Jester went through and changed the name of the inn there. Yep, that inn is there. You can visit that. I am going to go ahead and just, the question that I always get as soon as I say I have this, which I don't want to disappoint anyone, but everyone was excited about this character because she had blue skin and little bitty tusks, and everyone went, oh my god, is that a Jester Ford baby? No, she's a Water Genasi. There is no relation to her in the Mighty Nine. If you're a DM, you can probably force a homebrew of it. But just so you know, unfortunately, that is not a Jester Ford baby in this campaign. So, I've rambled a lot about this. David, I know you had some questions. Anyone in chat have questions? Focus me, because I'll just go.
Any additional trigger warnings beyond what you covered so far?
So you go into, and I can't remember. It's the Temple of the Crawling King, and I'm just completely blanking on the name of it right now. And it's the Betrayer's Rise is the name of this. You're going to this temple. There's a couple places, but temporary loss of control of your body, complete lack of light, being deep underwater, and underwater pressures are also major themes of this. Those are the big ones. Your typical, D&D. I mentioned this a little bit before. The rival characters are very well fleshed out. Each of the rival characters has their own goals, their own trigger warning. Then yes, each of the rival characters has their own goals, their own fears, their own things that drive them. But the book really encourages you as the DM to give your players control. So there are even moments where it's like, these characters will fight your characters, but they'll only knock them out unless your characters have done X, and then they will try to kill them. And then it also turns around and says, if they fought if they wounded consider having a character die here. One of the characters has died. There is a character who receives some big dismemberment. Yeah. So, this is not the lightest touch, but again, it feels like a Critical Role game because you are sitting here asking yourself, is this the right thing to do? It's further complicated because, like I said, the roots of this story go all the way back to the Calamity, thousands and thousands of years. And fact has gotten lost and intermingled with fiction and legend and lore and superstition. So one of the coolest things about this book, I feel, is by the time you get to the end, it's not asking if your party's going to do the right thing. It's asking if your party even knows what the right thing to do is.
One more thing about locations. The book says Call of the Netherdeep. Tell us about specifically Netherdeep.
So the Netherdeep is something that that no one's ever heard of before this campaign. The Netherdeep was created by an event which takes place in antiquity, but has been lost. You do receive a call, and it is going to eventually guide you into this Netherdeep. But what is the Netherdeep, and why are you being called to it, is actually part of the mystery of the game. But as you can probably guess by the name, it's watery and it's deep underground.
Does what it says in the tin.
Pretty much. When the players want that dark setting, it can be a great game. But for sure, heavy big session 0 with this. Don't just leave it what players want in their consent sheet. Talk to them. Absolutely. Talk to players. Because you can... One thing that's really cool, like I said, you have this rival party early on, and you can... They've broken it down into 3 levels. So it's, friendly, indifferent, and hostile. And it gives you plenty of opportunities to change how the rival party feels about your party. But also it gives autonomy to each individual character. So certain characters appreciate cunning, whereas certain characters appreciate honesty. So if one of these characters, if your group is really cunning and really ruthless and does something that is just brilliant, that is a cue for you as a DM to decide this particular character might reach out to the party privately and might potentially, depending on how you as the DM decide to play it, might even leave the rival party and travel alongside your party.
Oh, that's cool.
If that's how you want to play it. I'm also, I have to nerd really, really hard. So this game does start in Xhorhas, which is a place of mostly monstrous races. Cunning action, withdraw consent. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And withdraw consent is always a free action.
Always.
Always. But you don't require a specialized party. You don't have to play a bunch of water genasi to play this game. You don't have to be able to breathe underwater. That's taken care of. But because it starts in Xhorhas, you probably don't want a party of 5 humans. This is, by the way, optimized for 5 players. You can adjust up and down a little bit, but it does encourage you to have 5 players. Given that Xhorhas is a place where drow are the ruling class, and then the next most 2 populous races are orcs, half-orcs, and goblins. This is the place to get your party to play their monstrous races. Break out that Minotaur. Finally play that Goblin. This is the place to do it, because they're going to be at home in the beginning, and then they're going to be going somewhere really cool, because you go to Acherel, which is the continent of Marquette, which is this huge, massive, brilliant world that they probably can't imagine otherwise. But the people of Xhorhas worship the Luxon. The Luxon beacons. The Luxon is a god of light and rebirth, and there's a thing called consecration. And if you're consecrated, then you will be reborn, so long as you die within the space of a Luxon beacon, and you will be reincarnated. And as you reach an age, you'll remember your past lives. And this is something very important to this group of peoples, as you can imagine. Now, your rival party is they're pretty cool characters. Like, you know, you've got the cool little water genasi. You can see the spunk in her. She's the leader. And then, you know, you've got your typical lineup, except one of them's just this human. And he's like a short human, too. He's smaller than the drow. And drow are tiny. Drow dudes are small. So, like...
Listen, we love a short king.
I love a short king. I'm 5'2". I hecka love a short king. But you're kind of like, okay, there's the human. But then when you start reading their backstories, the human was consecrated in a previous life. So he's been reborn. And that's just a cool fact that, like, okay, the human's the consecrated one in the group. And so whenever he dies, if he dies, you know, he's going to be reborn. But this game pretty quickly takes you away from Xhorhas and into Marquette. So he's thousands of miles from a Luxon beacon. And suddenly that burden of mortality hangs a lot heavier on him than it did back in his homeland. So.
And that's a really good segue. So tell us about the characters on the cover.
Okay. This is Ao. She is the party leader. She's a water genasi, and she's spunky. Then, okay, I don't have their names memorized. I'm not going to lie. She is not the Ford Jester baby we all wanted.
You got the book, like, what, 36 hours ago?
Yeah. Dermot is this adorable little goblin. He, like, he's from a town, where the place where you start, Jigao. Jigao is this place that's highly competitive. You go there for a festival of competitiveness, basically. And Jiao is like the youngest of, I think, 13 siblings. Something ridiculous. And he's like, you know what? I don't wanna. This is always my goblin voice. I don't need to steal the spotlight. I'll do the cooking, and if your shirt tears, I'll sew it up. And he's just like the best friend moral support. And as soon as he learned that his best friend wanted to be an adventurer, he started wearing heavy plates so he could just go out and be a cleric and keep her safe. And, like, we all deserve a Dermot. We all do. Next off we have, and you can roll your eyes at me, Glasteridad, my personal favorite. We got an emo drow, because of course, we got an emo drow.
We know what you're about.
We know what I'm about. I stand edgelords. They are my thing. And he grew up in Rosh Hashanah, the capital. And
Wait.
he's
Rosh Hashanah?
Rosh Hashanah.
Like the
Rosh
Jewish
Hashanah,
holiday?
I'm sorry. Rosh Hashanah.
I was about to say, I was like, wait a second. Oh,
I reached
that
for
reminds me. Okay, continue.
I reached for a word and I grabbed a similar word. Roshana, which is the capital city. And he's actually the oldest of the bunch. He's something like Rosh Hashanah is the way it's described. Is amazing. He's like 200 years old and has only just now started studying magic. And so he's like, his pride's a little easily dinged about that. You know, he's a little sensitive boy about it. He appreciates cunning. And he's also so pretty that 2 members of the party have a crush on him. And he just doesn't seem to notice.
Pound Town, population 3.
Yeah. He's got AO, and then my other favorite, well, I mean, I love a lot of these. Erwin Wastewalker, our little human, who is not a bard, but he's so clearly a bard. Yeah, both he and AO have it for Pretty Little Drow, because can you blame them? Erwin, Herb, to his friends, he's laid back. He's kind of out for an adventure, right? He wants to be a big hero, but he's kind of laid back and he's kind of embarrassed that he's not like as strong as he would like to be. Hey Rex, how you doing? He's only 19,
Hi.
so he's got kind of the patchy beard, and he's a little self-conscious, but he hides it behind just this like, nah, I'm fine. Like, I think I'd play him somewhere between a laid-back bard and a himbo. Right? A little more ambitious than a laid-back bard, but trying to look like a laid-back bard. He's got a lot of baggage. He's the one who was consecrated in his previous life, so he's going to be reborn so long as he dies within the reach of a Luxon beacon. And then we have the closest character that I have seen to Roxy in media. We have Maggie Keen Eyes. And Maggie is, she's an ogre, and she's 12 feet tall, and she's massive and quiet and looks scary. But what you should notice is that her eyes are just piercing blue and incredibly sharp. And welcome! Thank you for the follow, Indy Julian. So she is a mercenary. She's the most experienced. She met up with AO and is the reason AO was confident enough to start this adventuring group. So that's kind of your rival lineup. You can be very friendly with them. You can be very not friendly with them. And there are various points built into the book where you will encounter them, as well as several points where it's like, hey, if you think the group should meet back up, here's where it is. If they're friendly, they'll send a messenger and tell your party, oh, we're staying at this inn, so that you can meet up. If only one of them is friendly, here's a couple ways they might reach out. And there's a very interesting, like I said, from very early on, both parties are striving towards the same ultimate goal. One party hears they hear a prophecy, a plea for help, and they are basically hearing that makes them the prophesied heroes. But the other party is aware that this happened, and aware of how they could potentially steal the thing and force themselves into the role of the prophesied heroes. So you can decide, is this rival party, how cutthroat are they? How ambitious are they? And does that change as they go through these different trials? If the other party, if the rival party becomes the prophesied heroes, your party then has to decide, do we help them? Do we take the back seat? Or do we steal the thing? Do we kill the prophesied heroes and become the heroes ourselves?
So, that actually brings up a another good segue is, so you have all these like any good module, you have these branching storytelling points and different directions it can go. One thing you and I have spent a lot of time talking about is how to execute storytelling in this particular form of media. How you tell a good story, whether it be on stream or in your home games. And when we were discussing the book before, one of the things that I was really intrigued by is the way they do the formatting for how the story is told in the book. So
Yes.
talk a little bit about that.
So, throughout several points, the narrative branches, at one point there are 3 different factions that you can join. So they have this for the overall view of the thing. I don't want to hold it up because I don't even want to risk spoiling, like, how the entire overview goes. But, like, at one point you get to Akurel, and there's 3 different factions that you can join up with. You don't have to join up with any, but if you do, there's a series of events that will help guide your player party through the story. You can try and join up with multiple factions. You can decide if you want to spy for one faction with the other. But it's very well broken down. They have this, like, flow chart where it shows you, like, this is one for one of the factions. So it kind of gives you a title of what the thing is, a brief summary of it, and then it breaks it down further. But, like, these first 4 sections of this are in this chapter 4, whereas the following 2 are in chapter 5. This is really important because there's 2 more flowcharts for 2 other faction things that can happen. And so you have to, it makes it much easier to know the first 4 are in chapter 4. The next 2 are in chapter 5. And again, whatever faction your party chooses, the rival party is going to choose another faction, unless y'all are friendly and they can maybe convince them to join the same faction and help each other, which is also an option. It all depends on how your players take this. This is a really well broken down narrative. It even at one point had suggestions for, like, okay, look, there's your party might just be like nose deep to the mystery. I want to figure out what's calling. I want to solve this. Let's go. And it's got some suggestions for how you can get them there without going through this faction flowchart. It also has built-in breaks. So once you complete one of these flowchart modules, it'll say, cool, like, they'll get a message from their superior saying, we'll contact you again later. And especially in one of these, which is the more shady option, if you show up asking for work, they get real mad because you're leading people to where they are. And it's very much a do not contact us. We will contact you when we have a use for you. And some of these, it's like 7 days after this is completed. So there's built-in time for your party to meet NPCs and investigate on their own and do some shopping and explore Akurel, which is huge. But your party doesn't necessarily know that there's that 7-day countdown. So it keeps that sense of urgency, but lowers it just a little, and you can give them as much or as little information as will keep them going. Very well laid out book. I have to say, I am so impressed at how well this book is laid out. And, like, y'all, some of the art is just breathtaking. So pretty.
In all of the D&D books, especially from what I've seen in the Critical Role books, the art has really been stunning, and I feel like I feel like Wizards could do a better job of showcasing all the incredible art that they have. Like, how many art books have they come up with?
Yeah.
Like think about all the art that hit the cutting room floor.
Right.
For all of the books they've made for 5th edition.
And that's one of the things that I love about this book is it, if I can hold it open, it actually has some of the concept art. It's only 4 pages of it, but I'll take it. I'll freaking take it. I want the concept art. Give me all of the concept art. Vivian asks, would this be a good campaign for new players? Yes, but it would not be a good campaign for new DMs. There is a very emotional core to this story. So much of this story, well, like corruption and lore drops and branching narratives and all that are major themes of this and important themes. The heart of this campaign, the core of this campaign is, what does it mean to be a hero? What does it mean to sacrifice? And what does that really cost you? What does that cost actually mean? Not the day after you make the sacrifice, not the week after you make the sacrifice. What does sacrifice, what toll does that take on a human or a humanoid soul? And as a DM, you will have to show that across 5 different characters in the rival party, plus another major NPC who I am deliberately not talking about because I don't want to risk spoiling the coolest part of this whole thing. As a DM, like I said, at any given point, you're going to have your player party plus the rivals. Those are 5 NPCs to keep track of, plus your player characters, plus whatever they're fighting. Because often the rivals are going to be joining you or fighting against you while you're fighting something else in an underwater setting. So you've got depth, you've got disadvantage, you've got all of that. Plus you're having to really tell an emotional, character-driven story. It's going to take a very particular kind of DM. So while I do think this is, especially starting at level 3, 3 is a great level. You have enough like spell slots and abilities that you really feel like you can survive and impact your environment. But you're not at level like 19 where you're like, bring me a god, I'm gonna punch it.
What's also great about level 3 is that from the roleplay perspective, you are very much into your, not just your build, but your character. Like, your paladin has taken an oath. Your monk has chosen a, not school, but chosen a direction in his or her path for monkiness.
Yeah. The captioner thought you said monkey nuts, and I'm just really happy. Monks do cheat, so that I feel like they deserve it.
And same thing with
your thieves, thieves
rogues,
like
and druids. Like, there's a lot of, like, when you hit level 3, that's when you choose which direction you want to go. So that's a good place to start. And also, it's a good, like, there's, I don't know if it's in 5e, but I know that in 3.5 and in 2nd edition, they're like the very first thing you do is there's this mission to go kill kobolds, and executed properly, that gets you to level 3. So it's also a great jumping off point from, like, we just did this cool thing with our characters, we're figuring out who we are, we're on level 3, now what?
Does the book have suggested pause points that coincide with where the party would level up? Yes, so this actually part of, and I'm gonna hold it up, but very briefly, but like, so this is kind of the adventure flowchart, right? So I mentioned this is how the story goes. It's 7 parts, and into the 4th level, or at end of the 1st chapter, you're level 4. At when they arrive at this place at the end of chapter 2, you hit level 5. So even your level ups are scripted, but scripted in such a way, if you're hitting level, is it level 5? I think it's level 5 where rogues get another thing. Like, you're in a place where a rogue can go find the mentor to get their specialty, right? Because there's some some classes at different points have things where you don't just get it, you have to go learn it. So it's constructed very nicely in a way to coincide with that. Also, your rivals have stat blocks that grow alongside your party. So when you encounter your rivals in chapter 5, they're going to feel very different than they did in chapter 1. And not just through stat blocks, there are physical changes and things that happen to them. So that's fun. I feel like I'm teasing a whole lot, but also a lot of the joy of this is figure out what happened, figure out why it's happened. And I don't want to take that away from a party.
Also, like, the book drop today?
Yeah.
Like, it's different if we're like talking about Strahd that has been out for like years. Then you could be like, all right, so the villain is the Baron, and these are the major things that happen. Like,
yeah.
that's
like,
a whole different thing.
I am sure in a month, the name of this thing that is at the heart of the Netherdeep, that is doing the calling, that is all of this, is going to be all over the internet, right? But I don't want to be that person who says this, oh, day it dropped, I know you were hoping to play, but like, you're going to hear this name, and then as soon as you hear that name, you know it's important. Even if you manage to block out what I said, you're going to hear that name, and it's going to be like, oh, that ping, that's important. And I want to do that. That doesn't feel right. The Red Baron, we need Snoopy.
And there are people who want to be spoiled on things, there's a entire type of video game player where before they even sit down to play the game, they go and read absolutely everything they can about it, so they're 100% prepared, and nothing catches them off guard. And I think everybody who's gone deep into video game RPGs at one point or another has sat down and gone, okay, Google, tell me what the right answer is. I'm looking at you, Mass Effect.
I will not let this bad thing happen to my favorite character. Tell me how to not let it happen.
Right. Actually, yeah, you could play Snoopy in D&D. Yeah. What race would Snoopy be?
I feel like you'd like homebrew a tabaxi into a dog.
Yeah.
And then artificer.
It'd have to dual class because
yeah.
Snoopy does have a pet.
I mean, they can just have a companion.
That's fair.
They can also, isn't there a feat where you can just give them find familiar, and then we're done?
Yeah.
Just DM granted, find familiar, go. I know you had a couple other questions for me about this.
I did. One thing that we were talking about.
Monsters are great. Lots of really cool underwater monsters. This is a corrupted shark. Yeah, that's the first thing you see when you open the book, and I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a time. This is gonna be a time. Also, this is, without spoiling the end, this is written in such a way where good or bad, because there are definitely bad ways you could end this campaign. If at least half your party is not crying, you are playing with sociopaths, find new party members. Because, oh my goodness, this ending feels like a Critical Role ending. Good and bad.
Which is a good question. What distinguishes Critical Role from other D&D campaigns? Because like we've combed through, we haven't done any of the official Wizard stuff on stream, but we've combed through a whole lot of it.
Yeah.
And we also have combed through a lot of modules on DM's Guild and have run a couple. And obviously we've built our own, but what makes the Critical Role and what Matt Mercer does storytelling wise distinct from other modules and settings and whatnot.
So, first off, character-driven, which I know is not unique to Critical Role, but it is unique to a lot of Wizards books, because this is an official D&D, right? And a lot of Wizards books, let's be honest, it's a little light touch when it comes to the touchy-feely squishy. And as a whole lot of 3.5 and 4.0 nerds really hate, Critical Role is very character-driven. It's very roleplay heavy. And so much of what's happening in this game is going to be determined by how do your party and the rivals interact. On top of that, there's some other non-rival NPCs. Question? I can't wait. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for y'all to question the tiefling, because if I play a question, like, she's absolutely gonna sound like this, and she's freaking awesome, and I can't wait for y'all to meet her, because she's just so cute and so excited, and also a little bit of a coward, but I mean, come on, we can't all be heroes. Like, just reading, like, she doesn't even have much written out text, but just reading her description, like, I could hear her voice in my head. I could hear Matt Mercer doing her voice in my head. Like, Critical Role also has a whole lot of player freedom, and Matt will do this often. You know, you get to Acherel, and there's a chance you might end up there with a person who will take you somewhere, or a different person who will take you somewhere else. But you can also just show up there with no guide. Just, you're now in a different city on a different continent. The city is huge. You've got a couple threads in your hand. What do you do? And there's all sorts of DM tips for how to get your players to go somewhere if they end up there. But it's equal parts exciting and terrifying that that option is just there. That yes, I will send you somewhere, and you won't know what to do because you didn't make a decision that would give you a guide. So now you get to go find your own guide. And again, it's not done in a way that will screw the party over, but it's there. The final thing, and this was less the case with Vox Machina, because Vox Machina was truly their golden child. Vox Machina was your stereotypical hero story. And yes, they had darker sides, but Vox Machina really we're the heroes, we show up, we save the day, we get a castle. Some bad things happen, but at the end of the day, they're the glory golden heroes. Definitely not the case with the Mighty Nine. Bell's Hells is Bell's Hells is an interesting campaign, y'all. But especially with Mighty Nine, which I've watched all of Critical Role, but Mighty Nine was my first and will always be, like, my Critical Role party. There's a lot of, like, moral gray. There's a lot of questioning. There's a lot of, what if a person we love isn't the person we should save? What if the person we love is the bad guy? What if the people we're loyal to we shouldn't be loyal to? What if the thing that the people that we are loyal to is actually the bad thing? And a lot of that comes through in this, in that you can make good or bad decisions, and that doesn't mean it's the good or the bad choice for the world. It might just feel bad for your party.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
Oh
right.
No, you've gotten fuzzy again.
Yeah.
Yeah. While I sort this, definitely address the questions in chat.
Yeah. So with the rivals being such a big part, I assume there's something to protect the team from murder hobo commencing with the murdering. So first off, the rivals are very much a force to contend with. Their stat blocks are equal to your party stat blocks. So it's really hard to murder hobo a group of people who can murder hobo you right back. There is a big setup of the rivals will generally not try to kill you unless you try to kill them first, and then all bets are off, and then you might realize that, oh, I'm not supposed to murder hobo this group, and then there are built-in opportunities where you can try to, like, rebuild some trust, rebuild some friendship. But there are points, and I don't want to say what they are, because none of them are scripted in as, at this point, you should do this thing. But at points there are like, if you need to do a thing, this would be a good place where you could maybe kill a rival. That's an option. And they even say, like, if... Because like I said, each of the rivals has their own opinions about things, and one of them might really hate your party, but the rest of the rivals might like you. So maybe you make that one rival leave and you bring in another character that's original that would better fit this dynamic. Or maybe, like I said, maybe the whole rival party hates you except for one, and you recruit them and they like follow and travel with you, with your player party for a while. And then you can bring in another NPC into the rival party. So there's lots of flexibility. There's even some backups of like, because there are major NPCs, not rivals, but also other major NPCs that you can murder hobo. And they're like, if that person is dead, use this instead. Like, that's been built into this campaign. So the knowledge that murder hobo gonna murder hobo is there. But yeah, if you decide to murder hobo your rivals, the DM has the right and the ability to have the rivals murder hobo you right back. So hopefully that'll make players think a little bit.
Two elements that I've always made sure to incorporate in my home games, which seems like Matt Mercer also keeps in mind, is one, you don't have plot armor. Like, you do something stupid, you will get yourself killed. If you roll bad, you will get yourself killed. There are some encounters, so like, you know, and that's one thing I also don't see in a lot of the modules that we've combed through, is the combat encounters in the modules are all specifically designed for the characters at that level. And to throw in another video game reference, there's something nice about being able to wander into a place and be like, oh, everything here will squish me flat immediately.
How many times in Godplane did we tell our crew, there is a CR36 monster in this. If you think you should run, think about running. Think about... And one thing... Hi, Manhattan. Thank you for being loud. One thing that they've done several times in this book, David, that, like, made me smile, that made me go, David is gonna like this plot.
Oh, boy.
Is at several points they said, like, this character is gonna... or this monster is here. Da-da-da-da-da. If it goes below half hit points, it will try to flee. Or if you kill this one thing, it will try to flee. These things will not attack you at all. But if you attack one of them, they will all attack. Hey! And like, that's pretty cool. Like, not everything is going to fight to the death. Now, there are certain characters where they're like, you put them in this position, they will flee. If you don't let them flee, they will fight to the death. So, it's cool that Matt Mercer has a... Wait, is it Matt Mercer or is it Brennan Lee Mulligan? Now I'm forgetting. I think it's Mercer.
There's a white guy.
They're basically the same
they all
person.
Look the same.
Say, like, intelligent creatures act intelligently. Right? And a creature that's protecting its young is going to behave differently than a bandit who got paid, you know, is going to get a cut of whatever to jump you, but you just murdered all of his friends in front of his eyes. Right?
Right.
So,
and that's, again, circling back to a discussion we continue to have of the strengths and weaknesses of 5e, is they make retreat incredibly hazardous, very difficult, especially when, you know, depending on your terrain, you'll have you'll be in a position whereby if you try to run, you'll risk an attack of opportunity from literally everything you're fighting. And when you got 5 hit points, then you're just stuck. But yeah, intelligent creatures behave intelligently is a great way to put it, because one, you fight a lot of humanoid sentient creatures, and two, D&D puts in a lot of real world animals and creatures. Like, you run into wolves, you run into spiders, you run into things that have real world equivalents. And, from like wolves as an example, wolves don't hunt until they like die. They go, "Can I eat this thing?" And if they go, "Yeah, I can eat this thing," then they try to eat it. And if they're like, eyes bigger than the stomach, then they leave.
I think it was B. Dave Walters who said it. Neither of the white
Even
DMs.
better.
Yes.
Even better.
But yeah, this I will also say, and I didn't put this in my review, which is my bad now that I'm looking back. There's a lot of opportunities here for chases. Through cities, through swamps, someone's getting away, do you chase them down? And again, I have been super spoiled in that I finally broke down and subscribed to Dimension 20, and Brennan Lee Mulligan does the coolest chase things ever. Like, and those are not detailed out in this. Like, it's like, see the DM's guide for chase rules. And I'm like, oh, but this could have been a chase through Ank'Harel, right? Oh, this could have been so cool. And it can still be so cool. It's just on the onus is now on the DM to figure that out and do it, as opposed to, gosh, it would have been cool if it's all like, here's a really cool, like, here's 4 chase scenarios that could happen, here's one path, right? So this is prepared here for you. They get through this map and then this happens. And that was not part of it, which is, again, I can't demand it. There's no reason it has to be in it. But it would have been so much cooler if Matt Mercer had given us a Critical Role style chase thing. Oh, it would have been so cool. Anyhow, I'm done ranting about that.
And yeah, and one of the most compelling types of storytelling is you're chasing the thing while the thing is chasing you. And having that set up and having conflicting factions is a really compelling thing that you don't see in a lot of modules. A lot of modules are, you're the good guy, bad guy over there, figure out what he's up to, and then go slap him around a bit until he stops. Like, behave yourself.
Bonk him until he don't bonk back.
Right. And one thing that I really like in the TTRPG space is so many different systems are really all trying different approaches to storytelling, and that includes the mechanics. For instance, Vampire the Masquerade has tons and tons of lore about all the different factions of vampires and the hierarchies of them and the politics involved all play a central role in not just the storytelling, but in character design, in the backstories that you build for those characters, and in the abilities that you have. Like, the crunchy parts of Vampire the Masquerade are influenced by the politics of it, and vice versa. And so that's I've lost my train of thought.
Yeah, where were you going? I'm curious now. I'm sad.
Just
and things chasing you.
So the idea is that all sorts of new systems, because, and you've played more systems than me, but as we look at new systems, as we look to branch out, either outside of 5e or to pull in elements from other systems, it is interesting and compelling to see the way that the crunchier side of things, the mechanical side of things, influences the type of storytelling you have. Like, going back to retreat is difficult in 5e. That makes it more difficult, that requires more DM involvement to set up a chase while being chased scenario.
Yeah. Well, and
Um,
there's a there's also an interesting, again, Brian mentioned earlier the murder hobo, right? Like, there's no system for parlay. There's no system for formal surrender. There's no system outside of, like, good, neutral, evil, right? But that puts the requirement on the DM of, like, these people wanted to surrender. The party didn't let them. Right? What does that mean? What do people notice? What do people start saying? And I think, personally, in the stories I like to tell, I'd like for that to be a bigger influence of, like, you were cruel at this moment, and that wasn't necessarily bad, but what does that mean for your reputation? Right? You were
right.
kind in this. Do I want, as a DM, to punish you for being kind and letting someone get away? Maybe that's going to come back to bite you, but it shouldn't every time, or else of course you're going to murder hobo. If every time you don't murder hobo, you get stabbed in the back, like, I don't know that there's a good solution to that, but I wish I had it.
Um, and so, like, we've dug through a lot of the heavier parts of the Netherdeep book without, getting into, like, spoiler territory. But what about some of the fun stuff? Like, everybody likes stuff. Everybody likes going down to the bottom of the dungeon and getting stuff. What sort of stuff do they have that you can get?
So there's a lot of stuff. Especially as, like, one of the things you discover is a sunken ancient city that no one has set foot in for a very long time. So you can get your artifact nerd on, and let me just also say, crit nerds, you can ally with the Cobalt Soul. That was the monks that Bo worked for. Yeah, you can ally with the Cobalt Soul. There's a lot of stuff, even very early on, like, there are these medals that you can get. I thought of you, David. There was a pie eating contest. One of the first things we did in David's campaign is we did a pie eating contest, and my big, sweet half-orc girl won. And
that
you can get the
storyline is
medal
still
of the meat pie.
Ayy.
And it's a wondrous item, common. You gain 2d4 plus 2 temporary hit points when you use an action to press this medal to your mouth. Once this property has been used, it can't be used again, and the medal becomes non-magical. While this item is magical, it remains slightly warm to the touch as it's freshly out of the oven and smells faintly of baked pie crust.
Oh my god. Well, again, I'm glad Matt Mercer finally caught up to what, like, the cool kids are doing.
So there's a series of these medals of merit. I'm going to say this phrase because it's awesome, and then I'm going to say nothing more about it, but just how there's medals of merit, there are also cards and a section for fragments of suffering.
Hot. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. There's lots of magical items. Not a lot of new stuff, though. I'm going to be honest. There's not... there is, without saying too much, a way to make non-magical weapons magical that are important to the story. As I said before, there's a Vestige of Divergence. And that's really cool.
And while... So how many pages is the book?
Total, including concept art, 224.
Okay, so you get a bigger than PHB level of content with that book.
Yeah, so taking out, like, just straight up story, it goes to page 186.
Zoinks.
186 pages of adventure. After that starts the glossary, after that starts creatures, after that starts... So, when I say this is a big adventure, it is a very... Now, you're not going to play every single page of that, because like I said, at one point there's 3 branching narratives. And your characters are only going to follow, your party's only going to follow one of those paths. They could maybe like start out going like, oh, I'm gonna work with this group. Oh, this group is cooler. I'm going with this group, right? But you can't go through all 7. Like it's not, or all 3, all the way down to 7. It's not possible. The game itself prevents that.
But you mentioned earlier, you know, there quote unquote isn't that much new stuff, and I'd argue that given the volume of content, both in this book and in the focuses of previous Critical Role books, it's good that they don't do that, because one of the balancing acts, especially as a DM, is what books do I need to have to tell the story I want to tell?
Right.
Like, you know, for you and I, outside of the big 3 of PHB, Monstrous Manual, and the DMG, for us, Ravenloft would be, you know, a required thing. But then, you know, you have Tasha's, you have Xanathar's, you have other resources in addition to all the stuff that you homebrew. And I think in a specific module, you know, you don't want to introduce like 5 or 6 new things, and then someone who is putting together their own module is going to go, okay, well, I have to go buy a module with a story I'm not necessarily interested in, so I have access to these reference materials.
Because, like, even there is a Vestige of Divergence in here, and everything you need to know about that Vestige of Divergence is in here. But that Vestige of Divergence is also in here. This is doubled up, which isn't a bad thing, right? So is it new?
Yeah,
is there new stuff? Well, there's a ton of adventure. There's also a ton of non-Critical Role exclusive items. Like, they don't even tell you, a lot of the loot is like, there's this thing, and it just tells you what it is. It doesn't even tell you what page it is, because you put it into Google and there's everything you need to know, because it's such a common item. There's tons of those.
Like you get a bag of holding.
Yeah, exactly. Like, literally, there's a character running around with a bag of holding, and it doesn't give you a stat block for a bag of holding, because you don't need it, because it's a bag of holding.
Right. Does what it says on the tin.
Right. There are, again, before we even, here's what I think is really cool about this. And again, some of this is doubled up because Taldoria Reborn is a massive book, and the amount of cultural information. I have a review of Taldoria Campaign Setting Reborn on Gaming Trend. That book is massive, and it covers all sorts of cities, and it tells you the population and then the breakdown of this percentage human and this percentage like, it tells you the type of government, it tells you what their main trade is, right? So that's really, really good and useful. And is it necessarily, regardless of if you play in that setting or not, that's really useful and interesting information for when you're trying to build your own game. So this is chapter 4 when you get to Ank'Harel. And outside of the pretty picture, which is such a pretty picture, and look, there's a sky ship, and I just love it. It starts on page 77. And then it just starts talking about what is in the city. And it continues to just talk about what is in the city until page 96.
Ooh-wee.
So
that's a chunky boy.
Your players are going to be spending a lot of time in the city, and this is the city where things are built in, where it's like the contact will reach out to them again 7 days later. So you've got time, built-in time, for your players to explore this city. So they don't just show up somewhere and they're like, oh yeah, this is cool, next, right? Like, they make this their home. If they join, one of the reasons you join this faction is that they're given free lodging within a certain area. So that becomes their home base. And we all know how important a home base is to a party, right? Like, they start making this city their home. So even if you, there's so much to take from this module, especially if you're playing it, but even if you're not playing it, how it's built and how the pacing is and how it ties things together. It's really, this isn't a module about go find a bad guy and bonk him until he doesn't bonk back. This is a storytelling module. This is not a module about go be a hero. This is a module about, do you even want to be a hero? Do you even know what that means? And that's really cool. And while, yes, it's been done a lot, I know all sorts of actual plays who've explored this theme. It's rare to see it in a module. It really is rare to see it in an official published module. And it's exciting to see it done so well.
2 more questions for you. One, less of a question, more of a direction. Talk about the pronunciation guide.
Oh my goodness. Woof. Woof. Yeah, I need it. Like, look. I can't even say white people's names correctly.
Aaron.
Aaron, yeah. So, like, they have an entire page. I think it's just one page, but they have an entire page of, like, people and locations and, also, like, there's Prolix Yusuf, who's a tiefling that you'll meet in one of these places. And, like, it's literally Prolix, which, like, Mercer, you cringe
digging his own grave.
that your people do this to you, but you do it to yourself. I love you, Mercer, but you do it to yourself. So yes, it's not everything, and also, you know, this is, while Exandria is, Matt Mercer's homebrew world, he still uses the D&D Pantheon. So, not everything's in there, because some of these gods, the Moonweaver's actual name, I'm not going to say it right. I'm not even going to attempt. It's not in here, because you got to go online to find that. Because that's not Matt Mercer's original. That's just, you know, Wizards of the Coast trying to make me look like an idiot. Live on air.
I mean, yeah, Wizards going to do that. But Wizards can take a page from that and publish a pronunciation guide.
So, did you hear the story? I forget what it was. I forget what the monster was. But there was a monster that Matt Mercer kept saying wrong, and he was convinced he wasn't saying it wrong. And someone came up to Matt Mercer at a convention and is like, "You're saying this wrong." And he's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yes." And he pulls out the app where there is not just a pronunciation guide, but there's a little audio thing where you can click it, and it'll have someone saying it. And they had paid Matt Mercer to say the name of the monster that Matt Mercer was saying wrong. So someone looks at their iPhone and has Matt Mercer correct himself.
Oof. Pain. Deep, relentless pain. Never-ending pain. The life of a voice actor. It comes back and bites you right in the ass.
If you cannot, I'm telling y'all now, if you cannot take a licking like that and walk away laughing, don't ever stream.
Right.
Don't ever stream.
Yeah, if you can't find how hilarious that is, then just do something else.
Just don't internet. Like, I'm not being mean. You'll take more of a licking. Question the next.
So, having reviewed the entire book, and I'm sure you're going to do a much deeper dive into it in the future.
What? I didn't read it. What are you talking about?
Especially now that you are planning to run this as a campaign, and where that'll happen is still to be determined, but we're working on it. What about this campaign are you most excited about?
I really love, and okay. So first off, I love the scope of it. It is so big. There's so many options. There's so many hard-coded options, and then, you know, once you get into a game and everything gets kind of loosey-goosey. So, like, there's so many different ways this could go. So if the module itself gives so many options, I'm excited to see where players end up. But also, you and I have talked about, and I started to say this, and I wanted to finish that idea, but now it has, now I've lost it a little bit. Heck. I am really excited to see how different DMs play the different rivals. Because even though the basics are put out, every DM flavors everything their own way.
Right.
And I'm excited to see which characters become table favorites. Because there's some really interesting ones in here. I'm also excited to see. You and I have talked about there's freedom that is felt, and there's actual freedom within a module. I am very good at being like, yep, pick a door, any door. There's like 6 doors here. Pick any door, and there's actually like 2 doors. Right, and that feels like freedom. There is actual player freedom here, and with consequences that weave in much further down the line. And I'm excited to see how players react to that. I'm also curious, given how much, again, I'm being careful how much I say, but there's some major lore being dropped here. And a chunk of that involves the moon. And given Travis's character in Campaign 3, and given Liam's character's tattoo, I'm wondering if we're going to start seeing more of that tied into Campaign 3, because that would be interesting. Now would be a good time to start tying some of that in.
Given that Sokka from Avatar is a charisma-based class. And listen, keep an eye on your moon if he's around.
My girlfriend turned into the moon.
Right.
My random big weird nerd flex is I got to say that to the voice actor when we were hanging out, to Dante Basco, and he laughed. He just laughed and he said, "That's rough, buddy." And that made me really happy. Didn't miss a beat.
Before we wrap up everything, does chat have any other questions about Netherdeep?
Ask away! Now is the time! Again, I will say, if you're a fan of Critical Role, you're in for a treat. You're going to be retracing a lot of the steps that both the Mighty Nine and Vox Machina have been to. While it is a different part of Marquette, you will be in Marquette, which is where Campaign 3 is set. Pretty decently away. I don't know if they're going to get to Ank'Harel, but that is where Gilmore is from, and the Vox Machina visited. You're going to spend a lot of time in Xhorhas, which is, where the Mighty Nine spend a bunch of time, and you're going to get to hang out with Essex Himbo Brother. And I love Essex Himbo Brother. Chat has completely derailed David. I saw an idea and then it just flew out of David's mind because pickles.
Yep. Yeah. Oh no, pickle. Oh wee. Yeah. It's just Monster Hunter is a good time. Is all I'm gonna say.
Alrighty. Well, if that's that, I'm gonna remind you all to go hang out at Mr. Todd Moonbounce's channel on Sunday nights, where I get to play Kai, and I only get 3 more episodes. Our space adventure is coming to an end. However, only one adventure is coming to an end. Starting in April, there's going to be something new airing here on my channel, which I can't wait to start telling you all about. Also in April, I will have an announcement about something else. And on April 9th, I think I'm safe to talk about this now. I'm going to be doing a charity stream for Child's Play. I will not be running it. I will be a player, and I can't wait to tell you some of the people I'm playing with. It's going to be a really, really good time. And so yeah, I got a couple things on my plate.
Yeah, Kay isn't busy at all. Plus, all of the things that we are working on, including debuting a new multi-episode module soon.
Very excited. If you are interested in playing with us, please join my Discord. We are going to be doing some recruiting here soon, because I do have a new multi-episode module coming, and well, I'm itching to run Netherdeep. It's killing me. I mean, it's going to be a big commitment, but also, like, I want to play the Rebel Party. I want to see if anyone falls in love. I want to go into the Netherdeep. I want to do all this stuff.
You want to run underwater combat encounters?
No, I really don't, but I'll do the thing for the Netherdeep. Maybe we just give, like, everyone, like, gravity boots, right? The sharks have, like, gravity boots tied to them, so everyone's just, like, on the floor. Everyone's just on the bottom, and it's fine.
Nah, we're doing it Final Fantasy X style. I forget what the game is called. Right? Yeah. Your own personal hell. It's gonna be great.
The things I do for Critical Role.
Right.
Also, happy 7-year anniversary to Critical Role. It's coming up very, very soon. I feel like, do you like underwater combat is a good weed out question for psychopaths. Yes. Not wrong. So those are all of my announcements. I've got a couple. Everyone send David all of your thoughts and energy, because I am putting him hard to work on some of these modules that we're hopefully going to be running soon. Again, Sunday nights at Todd Moonbounce's channel, where I get to play Kai, the creepy robot who is clearly not the bad guy. And thank you to Web Captioner, doing our captions below. Thank you to Bardley.io for the chill background music while we chat. And yeah, Vivian loves X, and I love that Vivian loves X. Vivian, we've had long discussions. Your favorite Final Fantasy is whichever one you played didn't come out. You played at the height of your teenage angst. That is your favorite, every time. Yeah, think about it. Ask around. It works. It always works.
But that's not true for me, though.
Well, you break all the rules.
Oh, that's fair.
Alrighty. Thank you all for watching. This was a really great stream. We're going to be back next week. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. This is actually... I want you all to know. I got this shirt. I love this shirt. Chaotic Stupid is not in alignment. Brings me with joy. And then 2 people proved me wrong. The first being Kato, who plays in David's home game, who I'm going to bring on, because Kato and I both play... I like to call it constructive chaotic characters. We are chaotic.
Yes, absolutely.
But we move plots forward. We're not like, I walk in and I cast Fireball, but nothing's happened. I cast Fireball. Like, no. Chaos to move a story forward. That's my jam. And then Matt Mercer came in with his Exandria Unlimited character, and that is Chaotic Stupid in its best, most pure form, and I love it. So, the shirt is incorrect, but, you know, I still like the shirt.
And if you have any topics that you want us to cover on stream, either drop us a message in Discord or tweet to Kay or me, and it will eventually show up as one of our talking points.
Yes, please. All right. My friends Queenie and Blue, it looks like Queenie tonight, are over playing EVE Online. So I'm going to send you all over there. Who needs a fireball when you can squish everyone? Yep. All right. Thank you for watching. Please have a really great night. Be good to yourselves. Be kind to others. You never know what anyone else is going through. And we will see you next time. Again, hit us up if you have topic questions or suggestions, and we will see you soon. Bye, y'all.